The opinions and statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
Good day. Welcome again to another edition of Boomer Generation Radio. This is your host, Richard Address, coming to you live from the studios of WWDB AM 860 here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and streaming live on WWDBAM.com. We want to welcome you to another edition of Boomer Generation Radio. And once again, a reminder that if you have a question, if you have a suggestion for the show, email us at boomergenerationradio@gmail.com. That's boomergenerationradio@gmail.com. This segment of Boomer Generation Radio is brought to you by Kendal, a system of not-for-profit communities and services located in 8 states in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and near Midwest regions of the United States. Kendal advocates for and empowers older adults to reach their full potential and is committed to working with others to together transform the experience of aging. To learn more about Kendal, that's Kendal, we invite you to visit kendal.org or call them toll-free at 888-759-0128. That's 888-759-0128. We are very pleased to welcome to our Boomer Generation microphones for our Kendal segment Alice Moore, a nurse educator and lead trainer at Kendal Outreach, and Neil Beresin, the National Program Manager for Vitalize 360. So Alice, Neil, welcome. Welcome to Boomer Generation Radio. Glad to have you here in the studio.
Thank you, Richard.
Be here. Thank you.
So this seems like a very, very exciting project, this 360 program. It seems to be involved with health and wellness and empowering people and, from what I'm reading, empowering entire communities. So why don't we just start at the beginning? What is Vitalize 360? It almost sounds like a supplement pill, but it isn't. I know, but what is it, Neil?
The elevator speech, Richard.
Okay, the elevator speech.
Fast one. It's right. A coaching and assessment system for older adults, but also the organizations that they live in. So it's really organizations that come to us and say, we want to help our individuals, our residents grow, prosper, be healthy in their older age. And so we want a program that can support us and them in doing this.
So Kendal Corporation calls you and say, we want to do this. Can you come and work with us to create a program? Am I understanding that correct or not?
A community out there somewhere calls Kendal, Kendal Outreach, Vitalize 360, and says, I heard about your program. Someone in our backyard is using it, another organization. We'd like to talk about what would it mean for us to go down this road. Okay, so what does it mean, Alice?
So when we approach a community, we're really asking to find out, where they are in terms of their culture. Are they looking at wellness? Are they looking at really successful aging, and what is that for their community? And it's a fabulous opportunity to work with the organization and develop coaches, because the coaches work with the folks in the community, the residents, and are really engaging them on what it means for them to live a purposeful life. What do they want to do? How do they want to engage in that community? What are some of their goals, and how are they going to get that? And we do that through a couple of meaningful conversations with them.
So this is for us. So when you say develop coaches, you're talking about the institution and the residents, or what? Or what?
We're talking about developing coaches within the organization, and it's the coaches that have the conversation with the residents or the participants in the communities.
Okay.
And they really have a very meaningful conversation about how do they want to engage in the community, how do they want to engage in their life, if they can create a life goal that really is vibrant and purposeful. And at the same time, we're also collecting some information, as Neil said, about the assessments that give us some information about what the individual likes or how they're participating in the community around them, how they're engaging with that in their mental health and in their cognition, how they're physically getting through the everyday life, and then some of their actual health status. And that helps the coach to also help coach them in areas or strategies that they can achieve some of this purposeful goal.
So this is being piloted now in a couple of places?
There are two organizations, Richard, that are really fully in pilot mode. One is Orchard Cove up in Boston, part of the Hebrew Senior Life umbrella of organizations, and they've been doing it for 3 years now. And a second, Kendal at Hanover in Hanover, New Hampshire, part of the Kendal system,
right,
who's been doing it for about 2 years now, and we're about to embark on a major training, 2-day training session for all the Kendal and Hebrew Senior Life family of organizations in September to move them forward on this program.
So one pilot is 3 years old, one pilot is 2 years old. So you probably have some data.
We have some incredible data actually coming out of Orchard Cove around fitness, around people's perceptions of their life and how satisfied they are with their life, their sense of meaning and purpose. Some great stuff. What's also taken some time, Richard, is to developing software to support the Vitalize 360 process for these organizations. So there's this process that we articulate that is probably too much detail for this, but to support that process is really a software system. Mm-hmm. And so the software system to us is really the most challenging aspect of developing this whole entire program.
The people that you're working with in the facilities in Hanover and Orchard, the median age, are these people in their 60s, 70s, 80s?
You ready for this? Orchard Cove's average age is right around 90, Richard.
Get down.
These are independent living residents. And Hanover's, my guess, would be between 85 and 90. Probably 85, closer to 85.
Okay, so this pops one of the myths already. You know, we're not talking about people 60 or 70. We're talking about people in their late 80s. So when some of the literature in this area is telling us these are becoming the frail elderly. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying by placing a system of fitness and wellness, you can change the perception and lifestyle of somebody who's 90 years old. Is that correct?
Can I say it? I'm going to say it a little bit differently. I'm going to adjust what you just said.
Say it any way you want. Say it any way you want.
By setting up a coaching relationship, we train coaches that are employees of the communities.
Correct.
We train them to have conversations with individuals in which they help the individual, they literally facilitate the individual in developing a life goal. What do I want to do in the next 5 to 10 years of my life? What are the supporting goals and action steps? All that is put into software. It's captured.
Right.
And then what we're doing is we're saying we believe that when you have a purpose, when you're focused on something that's meaningful to you, health and wellness will also come along with it.
So I have to, somebody's 89 years old, okay? A coach sits down and says, what's your goals for the next 5 years of your life? You know, they may be precise. I just want to be here, 5 years. But I guess that's a really important response. So I guess the coach says, well, we're going to make sure that we are going to devise a program to allow you to be here.
And I think you just hit that on the head, is that anybody's goal is a valid goal. In other words, if that's my goal, I really want to live a very healthy and engaged life. And if I'm 89 and that means into my 90s, then we think about, what does that mean? Does that mean that you want to socialize and be a part of something? And if you have any challenges to be able to do that, how do we as a coach help you do that? Does that mean you might have some physical therapy that you need to have so that you can walk all the way down the halls and be a part of the engaging? Some of the goals that folks have had and what they've done are just, they're kind of chilling and fabulous.
So, for example?
Getting into that one particular example, a young lady in her late 80s, 88, had said that she had just moved into the community, and she really wanted to figure out, how can I be a part of this? She hadn't been in a choral group since she was in her 20s. But she also had a hip break. Mm-hmm. So we really sat down, and there was that conversation. Nobody else was in a choral group. We were able to look through some of the data in Orchard Cove in the community and find out how many other folks also had an interest in singing. And we're able to reach out, create the choral group, get her involved. And in addition to that, she said, I need to have this fitness goal because I want to be able to walk into that room and stand for that entire choral group or the training, whatever they wanted to do.
So, and Alice, it's fascinating. my personal theology is, as I loosely call it, the theology of relationships. And it's based upon this idea that I'm hearing from the two of you that the most important thing that we have, especially as we get older, are the power of the human relationships that we create. And, it goes again to what we talked about in the first segment, a little bit about this desire not to be alone, this sense of isolation. And from what I'm understanding, Vitalize 360 is a tool to break through that barrier of isolation, break through that barrier of a loneliness, and create a model or a vehicle to create relationships. So this woman in the choral group, that relationship, socialization, every piece of literature that I've seen in my research said the more social you are, the more relationship-oriented you are, the healthier you are, the longer lived you are. Mm-hmm. So are you finding this in the data?
Yes, we are. And Richard, give me another example of a goal.
Do.
A woman who had been writing in her 70s stopped writing for whatever reason. And then when she got into her late 80s, her life goal became, I want to get back to writing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So for her, the leap was, I haven't been doing it, but it's not gone. I've brought it back, and it's given me a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah, we just actually mentioned that because I think it was last week, Clinton Mary, who are residents of one of the Kendal facilities, I think in New Hampshire, were on discussing this book that they wrote and edited on World War II reflections. Right. And it was just fascinating to hear their voice describing just the process of collecting these stories, both in their 90s. I would imagine it fits into this type of what you're trying to create. The fitness aspect of this, I imagine we have to change, or it's not people running necessarily marathons, although somebody just did it 91 in San Diego yesterday or Sunday. But how do you tailor the mobility, the fitness for people who have mobility issues and impairment issues, and also cognitive issues, because that need still may be there to have a life goal and a life plan, even though my cognition may be failing. How do you deal with that?
It's really about the relationship between the coach and the resident, and really knowing that resident deeply, because we prescribe in this process a couple of meetings. Literally 2 meetings within the first 6 weeks. So within the 6 weeks, we have a meeting and then a second meeting. And there's things that are done. There's some exercises that are done, values, clarification stuff, like what's meaningful to me, what am I challenged by. And when you learn the challenges, Richard, and how someone's functioning in their day-to-day life, you can begin to say, this is real and this is not so realistic for you. But really, we are nudging people. That's the verb. The coaches are nudging people towards a better existence, and if that means only, let's say, 2 times a week in a 45-minute stretching class, and that's perfect for you, then that's where you'll go. That's where you'll fit. So it's really about knowing that person deeply.
So again, it comes back to this concept of relationships, really. I mean, and so you're in 2 facilities as a pilot. Have you noticed any cultural changes within the facilities as a result of this program?
Well, I'll tell you, they would say, okay, we haven't been there and slept there and, really eaten their food and decided what's happened here. Right. But they would say, we've seen incredible changes here. We've seen an organization that before people weren't as satisfied with their life, and what we're seeing literally, because we have a survey that people fill out, and you're seeing this question answered pre and post their Vitality 360 work with a coach.
Right.
And literally Orchard Cove, the number of people who felt incredibly satisfied with their life was soared. I mean, we're talking in big numbers, and so we keep asking ourselves, is this an anomaly, or is this something that we will see in many communities that adopt this program? So that's one of our big questions.
So we're talking with Alice Moore, nurse educator and lead trainer at Kendal Outreach, and Neil Beresin, the national program manager of Vitalize 360. And we just want to pause for 1 second to just bring you sort of like a piece of news about a different type of event, a different type of card game that's going on Bucks County this month. And invite you to explore how to make end-of-life healthcare decisions in advance with family members through an innovative new game on Monday evening, June the 16th, which is coming up. This event at Chandler Hall in Newtown, Pennsylvania. Participants are going to play My Gift of Grace, a unique game that stimulates meaningful conversations about living and dying well. We actually had the creator of My Gift of Grace here on Boomer Generation Radio last month. Adult children are invited to attend with their parents. Dinner will be served, so join us. We are invited to join from 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday, June the 16th at Chandler Hall. The address of Chandler Hall is 99 Barclay Street in Newtown, Bucks County. If you're interested in this, please RSVP to Chandler Hall. The number there is 215-497-0905. That's 215-497-0905, or online to mygiftofgrace.com/Chandler Hall, as space is limited. Chandler Hall is a nonprofit Kendal community serving older adults in the Quaker tradition. And again, this is Monday, June the 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Chandler Hall, 99 Barclay Street in Newtown, Bucks County. And if you're interested in being involved with this really exciting, innovative type of program, My Gift of Grace, RSVP to Chandler Hall, the number 215-497-0905. And again, online, respond to mygiftofgrace.com/Chandler Hall. It's just one word, Chandler Hall. And again, space is limited. It's a very, very interesting, I've done a couple of programs with these people, both here on Boomer Generation and once also in Cherry Hill, following up with Samaritan Hospice. It's a very, very interesting program. We urge your participation. It really is involved in these conversations about end-of-life conversations and how to get them started, something that's extremely, extremely important. So we're back with Alice Moore, nurse educator and lead trainer at Kendal Outreach, and Neil Beresin, national program manager for Vitalize 360. Neil, Alice, talk to me a little bit about, because you alluded to this in the work that you're doing and the data that you're producing from these two facilities, this sort of like juxtaposition interface of mental and physical health, and how this program is really seeking to bring this together.
When Vitalize 360 looks at what we're kind of defining as successful aging, it's truly holistic. It's in all of those areas, the social and community area, the cognition and mental health, the physical area. And what's really been fabulous is when you have those meaningful conversations with individuals, and then you have this life, really create that relationship with the coach, we can see through the data that we collect in the assessment whether or not we are improving some of that mental health, whether we're improving some of that loneliness, whether we're improving some of the engagement, not only on an individual basis, but in a community basis. And then as we gather more communities, as Neil was saying, we'll be able to look to see, are all of those communities actually moving towards a healthier lifestyle? Is there less loneliness in those communities? Is there more participation? Is there more physical fitness? And we can then look at how does that compare, because we have some of the statistical data. Are people who might have had some cognitive or mental health issues maintaining and not declining if they have greater participation? So we'll be able to look at some of those data points and answer some of those questions.
So the project, the program, Vitalize 360, you're hoping to expand this, right, into other facilities around the country?
Absolutely.
And through the Kendal system?
Absolutely. We're going to be doing it with all the Kendals. Many of them are doing it now, but we have the software now. We'll have it for the September training.
Right.
So we're really pushing them out now with the software that's supporting their Vitalize 360 processes.
So
in other words, let me back up a second. Our pilot, it's happening in many of the Kendal and Hebrew Senior Life communities,
right,
but they haven't had the software to support it. It's been sort of paper and pencil business. Now in September with the training, this formal 2-day training, we'll be able to put it all together so it's one program and the software will match it. So after that, we intend to take this out to the greater world, aging services around the country, and say, is this a program that you'd find interesting, and do you think that your organization would be able to promote successful aging in bigger and better ways?
And from the experience in the two pilots, okay, how long? Because we're really talking about culture change, aren't we? I mean, we are and it's not only an individual, but it's fascinating. Which is why I asked the question before. You're really also talking about institutional culture change. So, from your observation, how long does this culture change take to really?
Every organization is different, Richard.
Yeah,
so we'll be doing some readiness work with every organization before we let them come into the program. So what we're really saying is there's some consultancy there around how do you, as an organization, get ready to do the work.
So there's sort of like homework.
Yeah, there's homework
before they're accepted into the program,
and it's often a group of staff, a support team of staff. So it could be physical therapists, and occupational therapists, and the coach, and managers, and wellness people, and lifestyle people. So it's all those people, Richard, that are coming together to do that work.
I was going to say I've had the great pleasure and gift of working with a lot of coaches over the phone, and I think one of the best comments was a coach said, I had to do this for my job, but then I found out that it engaged my heart, because this creates, as you said very clearly earlier, that fabulous relationship between coach and the residents. And they understand each other at a very different level and are really kind of rooting for their success, whatever it is that they decided to become engaged in. And what we're hearing from the communities is that, as Neil said, you nudge and you get about 10%, but when you get to about 25% of the residents in your community are really having great conversations and have thought about and started doing something, that the culture of the organization begins to change. There's a real tipping point, and that was proven really with Orchard Cove. You said their average age is 90. They have an 80 to an 85% participation in Vitalize 360.
Wow.
Richard,
they have moved their organization, and you sense that when you walk in the door. They're walking around. They're helping each other. They're peeking in the doors to see what's going on in the conference rooms and in the fitness center. They are truly engaged in their community.
And, Richard, they're now taking it to their staff. They're having Vitalize 360 conversations with their staff. Yeah. That's a big deal. Those are 30s and 20s and 40s and 50-year-olds.
I can see you on late night TV and with this 3 CD, call now.
As long as we can bring you with us. That's all right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, sure. And then there's more. Call now, and we'll throw in something else. I don't know. But I have to ask you, when you presented this initially several years ago, you must have gotten some if not negative, sort of like, well, this will never work, or did you get any type of pushback from staff before this was really adopted?
Well, I guess is your question at Orchard Cove, when they started going down this road, did they get pushback from anyone? Is that what you're saying?
Either Orchard Cove or Hanover.
I'm not aware of pushback. I mean, if I were to present this idea to someone outside of the Kendal Hebrew Senior Life family of organizations, their first response might be, well, how much time is it going to take for us to do this?
And how much does it cost?
Exactly. And so you're always going to come up against that. And so if we can say the return on investment, obviously, is X, people might turn around and say, oh, my God, then is worthy of the investment.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think some of the best approach, and even the folks at Orchard Cove has said that sometimes this has really grown organically. Very few residents will turn down a conversation with one of the staff that they like.
Right.
Can I just have a conversation with you?
Relationships.
Create that relationship. And it may not be the first conversation. It may not be the second conversation. But it may be the third conversation where you begin to say, what's really important to you, and what would you like to do? What would give you purpose? And they engage. And it's when you do kind of one thing at a time, it may not be a big splash, but they really be able to move and engage. And that's how Orchard Cove was successful in gaining such a large percentage of their population.
So you've had now these two pilots, several years worth of data. before we start running out of time, could you just, is it possible, what, on the basis of the residents, what are they telling you that is most important, these people? When they're sitting down with those coaches and it's honesty time, what do they say? What are the three things that you're finding that are the most important in these people's lives?
I would say probably the most important that comes up most frequently is family. In other words, I want to continue to participate with my family. I want to see my family. I want to go to the nephew's graduation. I want to go to the wedding. I really want to be engaged with family, friends, and community. And then something that was usually the third one is something that was wholly theirs. So we've had folks, as Neil had said before, they went back to writing, or they went to painting, or they went to singing. And those are ageless things that are important to all of us. But they have the pleasure and the gift of having a coach to help them walk and support them in that journey.
You need the coach?
Most of us need a coach. If we think back to all of the goals that we've made on January 1st on a New Year's resolution, if we had someone to help us nudge, but those were kind of step-by-step goals. If we had somebody to really say, what is it that you wanted to do? How can we help you get there? Most of us would take somebody up on that opportunity.
There's also a feedback loop here. In other words, the coach is checking in at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. Okay. So, and they're checking in and they're saying, how's it going? Like, what's working and what's not? And they might revise the goals at that point if someone's really having a hard time, right, or not reaching their goals or sort of seems to be a bit passive. So that whole check-in system is really important to the success of the program.
People ever come up to the coaches and say, I want to do this so I can just stay alive. I'm just so scared of dying. I don't want to, and I see this as a vehicle. I don't know if I can say yes to that because I'm not in those coaching conversations, Richard. I haven't heard that, but I think if you had to summarize it, it would be quality of life and successful aging is what people want. Right. It's amazing that the health and wellness aspect really, again, returns to this fundamental basic love of life and holding on to life. And if this is a tool that allows me to engage that, I'm willing to do that because it means so much to me, whether it's family and anything else. So Alice and Neil, I want to thank you very much. A reminder to our audience that this portion of Boomer Generation Radio has been brought to you by Kendal, a system of not-for-profit communities and services that advocates for and empowers older adults to reach their full potential. Together we are transforming the experience of aging. To learn more about Kendal, that's Kendal, we invite you to visit kendal.org or call toll-free at 888-759-0128. Alice Moore and Neil Beresin, we want to thank you very much for joining us here on Boomer Generation. Good luck with this program. It's a great program. So thank you for joining us. To all of you, have a great week. Thank you, Tony. We'll see you next week on Boomer Generation Radio.